Hey guys, so we're with Hiru right now, um, and this is the top 10 best patches in World of Warcraft. I think he did another one of the top 10 worst, um, but I didn't see that until I clicked on this one. So I'm gonna watch the best ones because you know. But yeah, this is the top 10 best patches, which World of Warcraft in its 21 years of being around, there's been some really, really good patches. I think the Isle of Thunder patch is also probably right up there as one of the best. The Isle of Thunder was great, but then the Throne of Thunder, that's like such a great raid. Um, the patch, I think it was a patch where they introduced Timeless Isle. Timeless Isle being so uh, revolutionary almost, at least for WoW, that the concept of that place, they still implement it all even to this day in their expansions. The whole just making it feel like an adventure, going around finding treasures, killing rares, certain events going on. So Timeless Isle was so good. Um, but anyway, here we go.
In this video, we'll be going over some of the best patches throughout the history of WoW. Patches that include either fan-favorite raids, well-received quality of life improvements, major lore reveals, or even revolutionary new systems which changed endgame content for the better. And first up at number 10, we have patch 1.11 Shadow of the Necropolis, a content patch for vanilla World of Warcraft which released June 19, 2006. This patch added the original 40-player raid Naxxramas featuring 15 bosses, tier 3 armor sets, and some of the most challenging content that vanilla WoW had to offer, also making several class adjustments as well as significant revamps to talents for both mage and shaman players. For example, all mage players could now learn evocation from a trainer at level 20, whilst shamans received an increase of the duration of multiple totems, such as their flame tongue and disease cleansing totem. The reason that patch 1.11 makes this list though, is due mainly to original Naxxramas. Not only was the encounter design cutting edge, pushing vanilla WoW to new heights with fights such as Hegan the Unclean, including their revolutionary dance mechanics, but it was genuinely considered the toughest content for its time as well, requiring 40 well-geared and highly skilled players to beat. Keeping in mind, this was back before widespread voice chat, readily available strategy guides, and general muscle memory built from years of playing WoW. The challenge was well worth it, however, with the raid offering meaningful rewards for successful players with some of the most powerful items, like the Guardian of Tearsful's legendary staff, Atiesh, Great Staff of the Guardians, wielded by lore legends like Adrian and her son, Medivh, and his joke of a son Medan from the comics who no one cares about, as well as tier 3 armor sets. Naxxramas was so iconic that Blizzard ended up reusing it as a Wrath of the Lich King launch raid, albeit with a 25/10 player version.
And it wasn't as fun. You had the new horsemen, so basically you weren't able to get the corrupted Ashbringer anymore. And the corrupted Ashbringer, I've seen them once in a while, far and few, out in the wild. And it really is such a gorgeous blade. And I wish, let me see if I can bring up the screenshots here. I'm pretty sure I've got a screenshot in here somewhere. Let's see, retail screenshots. Like right here, like it's just so fucking gorgeous. I've always loved the corrupted Ashbringer, and I wish this was more of what the hidden skin for the Ashbringer was. I mean, we got a cool one making it kind of look like this with like just made of skulls and all that, but this is so iconic, and I've only seen a few of them, like maybe during my entire 18 19 years of playing the game. I've seen it only like 3-4 times. But it was an ATS, the staff of the Guardian. It had a nice little perk. I believe it teleported you directly to Karazhan, which was kind of nifty, I guess. But we don't have stuff like that anymore. All these really cool ones. Um, but yeah, the original four horsemen.
But many of WoW's modern raid mechanics are inspired by and can trace their roots back to this original 40-man instance. This list can not only be a bunch of nostalgia bait entries though, there have been plenty of great patches over the years that have solidified WoW as one of the top MMOs of all time for over 20 years. And at number 9, we have patch 4.2, Rage of the Firelands, released as part of the Cataclysm expansion on June 28, 2011. This one added the Firelands raid, a 7-boss raid. The raid itself culminated in a battle against Ragnaros, but with a twist. 4.2 also added Firelands Invasion daily quests, allowing players to build up a base, recruit allies, and unlock vendors and storylines over time. Using a newly introduced currency, Mark of the World Tree, players could purchase powerful gear, reputation commendations, and profession recipes. And as is usually the case with most patches, some minor class balance tweaks and PvP updates were included as well. The reason this one makes number 9 is, again, down to the quality of the raid design. The Firelands was artistically stunning with varied, interesting encounters and mechanics. Ragnaros was a particular standout, including a 4th secret phase in heroic mode, with a dramatic twist reveal during the final phase transition, where the Fire Lord emerged from the lava and showed us that he could walk around with legs, like a big boy, all while summoning meteors and unleashing devastating attacks.
Yeah, that was crazy. I remember being there, and we're so used to seeing Ragnaros with the spiraling, swirling, flames around him. But suddenly this phase starts, and he rises up, and these tiny little legs start to appear. And then he's towering above you even more. I think some people, I'm sure, died at that point because we're all caught off guard. Like, look at his legs. Look how tiny they are compared to the rest of him. Someone clearly skipped leg day. So people were obviously not paying. Like, as soon as he emerges, I think like he starts summoning, rolling, fiery boulders, and people I think would just die because they were so, like, what? Ragnaros has legs? I thought that was his bottom. The swirl. I thought that was. Way to pull the rug out from under me, Blizzard. But Firelands introduced, the patch, the Molten Front, which was really, really cool. There's a lot of cool, rare pets for hunters. One of them being this freaking spider where, oh god, it took so long to get that thing down. You kind of had to kite it around its area, around the small area where it was, and just whittle it down. I think it took me about 30 minutes to do it because there was no simple way. You had to whittle it down little by little. So there was that really cool spider one. And then in the cave that was right there, same thing. There's a spider pet that you can tame. I think that one was a little easier if I remember. I can't remember actually, but I know it had its own, like some of them. There was a cat in Mount Highjaw, a cat pet that you could tame. But if you're wearing your armor, it just kind of one-shots you. The only way you could really tame it was if you took your armor off. It was so weird. And then you have the owl, like right near the sanctuary of Malorn. There was a spectral owl that you could tame, and the only real way was to fly and land basically right on top of the tip of the tree and basically tame it from right there. But Rage of the Firelands, the Molten Front, getting to watch the area kind of bloom where you kind of start it, progressing deeper into the area and kind of pushing your way towards the Firelands, or where Ragnaros is, and it was really cool. that you'd have kind of the same quests every day. For the most part, it was like really not that big of a deal. It's like, oh, plant your seeds right here and this and that. And but the Firelands, it was wide, it was open, fire everywhere, lots and lots of mobs, very compact mobs, um, great mechanics. Um, you had the Staff of Terragosa that you can get from doing the quests there, which I have, but it one of the best raids. I mean, people still refer to it now as one of the best raids, along with Ulduar, which I'm sure will be on here. But yeah, the freaking Firelands, it was great. It was a great time for WoW players because it was so massive, and it was just hard enough to where you wanted to keep going back no matter how many times you beat it. It was just one of those raids like, oh, we beat Ragnaros. Well, what do we do now? What are you talking about? You do it again next week.
Defeating heroic Ragnaros was a genuine badge of honor, with his mount drop, Smoldering Egg of Milgazor, being quite the prestigious status symbol. But the raid wasn't the only great thing about patch 4.2. Players were also fond of the outdoor content, the Molten Front. Daily progression felt rewarding and worthwhile, and after the underwhelming response towards patch 4.1, this follow-up restored players' faith and was a much-needed win for the expansion as a whole. And at number 8, we have Rise of Azshara, patch 8.2, the second patch of the Battle for Azeroth expansion, releasing June 25th, 2019, adding 2 zones, Nazjatar, the underwater capital city of the Naga, ruled by Queen Azshara, and Mechagon Island, a sprawling scrap heap containing a vault, hiding a lost technological city and leader of the Mechanomes, Mad King Mechagon. On top of that, the patch added both the Eternal Palace raid and the Operation Mechagon Mega Dungeon, also providing a major overhaul to BFA character progression in the form of the Essence system, allowing players to infuse active and passive powers into the Heart of Azeroth based on their class. For example, Purification Protocol for DPS classes added a major power which called down a purifying beam on a target area, dealing fire damage, or a minor power which allowed a player's damaging spells and abilities to release a blast of Azerite, doing fire damage to enemies within 8 yards. And finally, we got mount equipment, which allowed players to customize their mounts with abilities, such as water walking or a parachute, which could catch your fall if you fell from a high spot. In addition, this patch also allowed flying in Kul Tiras and Zandalari zones as well, making leveling alts and questing a lot smoother and easier as a result. The reason why 8.2 is on this list is down to the sheer density and variety of the content it added. Whilst Nazjatar offered a more traditional zone with questing and a story leading into a raid, Mechagon offered something more fresh, or at least at the time, with its sandbox exploration, rares, and mount drops like Rustfeather and the Junkheap Drifter.
Yeah, Mechagon was more of like a junk heap of like Timeless Isle. You had your events going on, you had your treasures to find, you had your, rares to find that could drop mounts, whereas Nazjatar was used to drive the story forward. It was lore-wise one of the most important places in the history of Azeroth. So while each kind of offered a very similar experience, because Nazjatar, same thing, you could go around treasures and stuff like that. One was more for story-wise that drove the story further in this place that we had only heard of and stuff of before in the past. And now we're getting to explore it. And then we also had like Mechagon, which was like Timeless Isle, but I think Timeless Isle is still far superior. I mean, Mechagon was fun, and I found myself just kind of like wandering around and just doing stuff, just turning music on and letting my mind just playing on autopilot essentially. But I in my heart, I still think that Timeless Isle is still one of the most fun things. And again, Timeless Isle set up so much for like the expansions that came after. Stuff that we see in Najatar and Mechagon. So I really hope that patch is on there because it was so revolutionary. Again, for World of Warcraft, it was revolutionary. I don't know how it is with other MMOs, but sometimes World of Warcraft is a little slow on the uptick there. You know, you have games that have had player housing for ages, and we're just now getting it. So when I say it's revolutionary, I mean it's revolutionary for World of Warcraft.
An upgradable trinket in the pocket-sized computation device, and an overall less guided, less hand-holdy experience. Not only that, but the Essence system actually managed to fix many of the complaints people had with the Azerite gear system in Battle for Azeroth, which was the main issue that the player base had with the expansion. Players were already a bit jaded with borrow-powered systems by this point anyway, especially since Azerite gear followed a much stronger system of artifact weapons during Legion. There were, however, quite a lot of essences to choose from right from the get-go in 8.2, which created an opportunity for much more customization and build diversity, in theory. But as is often the case, there's usually a meta build or two which the majority of players decide they must use in order to be competitive. But still, both the dungeon and raid designs were, once again, quite a standout. Operation Mechagon was very creative and mechanically rich, albeit including an extremely annoying stealth section, whilst the Eternal Palace was a solid raid, including memorable fights against Lady Ashvane and Queen Ajara herself, a major figure in Warcraft lore, who's...
Yeah. And that was another thing. The raid, we were fighting against one of the most beloved lore characters. Her Majesty, the Light of Lights, Queen Ajara. We had seen her in, glimpses. We saw her in her human form in, like the Well of Eternity type thing with, going back into the past, and got to see the whole War of the Ancients and stuff like that. But here we were standing before the true Queen Ajara, not an image, not something in the past, but the current form of Queen Ajara. And she's just as amazing as everyone would think. But we take her out, and N'Zoth is like, yeet. Takes her to Nyalotha, and we have to go there and rescue her. But yeah, the palace was really cool. The fight with Ajara was incredibly fun. The cutscene that happens afterwards with, N'Zoth kind of finally breaking free. You see the chains falling into the abyss and the eye. It was real fun, creative. Again, his legendary, well-known area, and we were facing off against this amazing character. And it was good fun. The Operation Mechagon, I think I went there once. Like early days, and people were having trouble with that that south part is annoying. I don't know how annoying it is now, given it was so overpowered. I don't know if you can just kind of brute force your way through it, but it was a good time. The palace was definitely fun, and the patch was a little helpful when it came to like the Azerite stuff. I was never a fan of that. It was just more stuff to manage, and again, cookie cutter, like he said, like oh well, no, I can't pick any of these because I need this one, because if not, I'm not going to be able to get into any groups because my DPS won't be as. It always comes down to like a cookie cutter sort of thing, and it just made more to manage, and it was just annoying.
Some speculate may be prominently featured yet again sooner or later within the World Soul Saga. And next at number 7, we have patch 7.1 Return to Karazhan, Legion's first medium patch released December 9th, 2016. Revamping the iconic Burning Crusade 10-player raid into a mythic-only dungeon, featuring secret rooms, puzzles, and callbacks to the original instance. 7.1 also added the Trial of Valor mini-raid, including only 3 bosses, Odin, Guarm, and Helia, but still managing to be surprisingly epic in scale regardless. And on top of that, the Siramar/Nightfallen storylines were concluded, leading towards the rebellion against Elisande and the Nighthold raid. Return to Karazhan is still considered one of the best dungeons ever made due to combining raid level complexity with the pacing of a dungeon, and setting a new standard for mythic content in the process. It was absolutely packed with nostalgia and interesting secrets, like an entire additional boss encounter against Nightbane, who in turn offered the chance at looting the smoldering Emberworm Mount. Meanwhile, the narrative in Suramar was one of Legion's strongest storylines, which 7.1 only assisted in expanding further. Whilst the Trial of Valor raid provided a bit of a payoff to a long-standing tidbit in the lore, with Odin being sealed inside the Halls of Valor by Helia ever since Logan's betrayal of his fellow keepers. When we defeated Helia and Helheim at the end of the raid, the curse upon Odin was finally broken, granting the once Prime Designate his freedom, which is not actually necessarily a good thing because Odin is a complete and utter jerk, but
I'm glad he brought that up. Yeah, I was about to pause it and say that before he did. Yeah, Odin's a fucking douchebag. This is a dude who sits there, talks about valor and honor and this and that. Helia is the way that Helia is because of him. You know, he was making the Valkyr and he forced her to become like one of his first Valkyr. She refused, and kind of like like a Greek pantheon sort of thing. It's like, oh, well, bye-bye. I have no use for you anymore. He's also been responsible for like wiping a lot of the history of the Titans, or pretty much anything that's happened that isn't responsible, like the Titans, you know, doing is like, oh no, all credit goes to the Titans. Like, this dude is a scumbag. He really is. He looks cool, and he has got a great voice, but this dude's an asshole. He like, I think Noble has a video up, I think, just dedicated to Odin, talking about him, because as the Prime Designated Titan Keeper, he's incredibly important, you know, lore-wise, but as a, you know, his person, he's a terrible person. Like, he is so shitty, you know? And I'm just glad that Hiru brought that up, because when I was playing Legion Remix and we were doing the Halls of Valor, I'm just like, Odin, shut up, because he constantly talks throughout it. I'm like, Odin, can you just shut the fuck up? Just shut the fuck up. I don't want to hear you. I don't want to hear you. He's a terrible person. He really is.
Hey ho. And at number 6, we have patch 5.4, Siege of Orgrimmar, released at the end of the Mist of Pandaria expansion on September 10th, 2013. 5.4 added the massive 14-boss raid, Siege of Orgrimmar, taking players from a vault beneath the Veil of Eternal Blossoms all the way to the heart of the Horde capital of Orgrimmar, ending with a fight against the war chief who did nothing wrong, Garrosh Hellscream. We also got the Timeless Isle, a free-form outdoor zone with rares, treasures, world bosses, and events. The flexible raid difficulty feature was also added, which provided groups of 10 to 25 players the opportunity to scale difficulty dynamically, laying the groundwork for future formats like normal and heroic that we have today. Solo proving grounds were added, which let players solo unique trials designed to improve and test their skills in either damage, tanking, or healing. And finally, major tuning across specs for PvP viability and raid performance were included as well. Now, Siege of Orgrimmar was one of the longest and most ambitious raids we've ever seen, tying together multiple storylines involving old gods, conflicting worldviews, regrets, mistakes, and generational feuds, whilst also taking players to multiple locations and continents. Meanwhile, the Flex raiding mode was a bit of a game changer, allowing friends and guilds of all sizes to raid together without strict size requirements. And on top of all of that, we also got an enjoyable endgame questing hub with a sandbox style which, very much like the future Mechagon, encouraged exploration and community engagement instead of just holding our hand throughout. All in all, 5.4 was a strong expansion finale, ending Mist of Pandaria with a bang. Sentiment towards the expansion wasn't quite as positive at launch, with a lot of people moaning about Kung Fu Pandas, but Mist of Pandaria has since become a very underrated part of WoW's history, with many players looking back on it fondly. And at number 5, we have patch 7.3, Shadows of...
Yeah. So one of the best patches of not just World of Warcraft, but definitely, like you said, Mist of Pandaria. People were like, oh my god, Kung Fu Panda. Well, guess what? The Pandaren existed before Kung Fu Panda. We got introduced to Chen in Warcraft 3, which was a few years before Kung Fu Panda. But Siege of Orgrimmar, amazing raid. Not so much as at the end, because I think we got stuck with Siege of Orgrimmar for what? Like a year and a half? But given what it was at the time, it was amazing. The fact that you had like the things of Manaroth, what are the shoulder pads? You know, it gave like not hunters, but like warriors or anyone like that reason to keep going back to farm for it. The flexibility, really, game changer. So basically the flexibility is, so you have a group of like 20 people, right? So the health and strength and everything of these mobs and bosses are going to be, you know, what they should be at, you know, if there's 20 people. If 2 people leave, it adjusts. So that way, that boss is not going to be just super powerful now because 2 people left. It adjusts to however many people are in. So if like the entire, you know, you have 20 people and like 10 people leave, guess what? You can still do the raid. You can still finish it because it's adjusting. It's flexible now. So the health adjusts and of all the enemy. So it was really, really a game changer for people who were like, oh, well, we only have this many people tonight. Well, no worries. You can go raid. You can go raid. Timeless Isle. Again, I love Timeless Isle. Fun fact on Timeless Isle, there is a cave that you can find underwater. If you go to where the frogs are, you know, the infamous frogs that were completely just abused in Pandaria Remix. If you go over there and go into the water, there's a cave. It's got chairs and like, I think like a little heart made. If you sit down in one of the chairs or click on the, you get transported to Gorgrond in, you know, in Draenor, which is really weird because you're in Pandaria and somehow this teleportation exists and it takes you to Gorgrond in alternate Draenor. But now that I've told you, go try it yourself. Like I said, it's in the place, it's on Timeless Isle where the frogs are. You know, where you see the ship, that's right there. You go into the water, there's this cave, and yeah, it takes you to Gorgrond for whatever. I don't even think they even explained why. It just does. It just does. Alright, so I just decided to go in game and show you guys exactly. Hey, here's Evermaw. Alright, I'm just going to show you guys exactly what to do in case you want to do it yourself. So we're on Timeless Isle, which it's good to be back here. I love being here. It's so pretty. They're so compact with lots of stuff to do. But I just figure, you know, it's easier just to show you guys. Because I say the place with the frogs, and some people may not know the place with the frogs. So I'm just going to show you guys. So yeah, I don't think it's ever been told why it does this. But you go in there and there's like a couple of chairs and there's like a heart made out of the things like the little clumps of dirt that you'll see around here. And it just teleports you to Gorgrond, which is just, why is it connecting Pandaria to alternate Draenor? It's just weird. Alright, so here are the frogs, the gulp frogs. These poor little babies had a hard time during Legion Remix. Or Pandaria Remix. Alright, so can I get on the water, please? There we go. So it's over here. You go down here. As you can see, there is this cave that you can go into. As you can see, there's a couple of chairs, a little heart. You can pick these up. They'll just give you some stuff, you know, the timeless coins and all that. So you sit in the chair, click on that, and here you are. For some reason, in alternate Draenor in Warcraft. Oh, it's a shame. It's such promise. It's a shame this expansion turned out to be lame. And here we are, Gorgrond. So, and if you want to go back, same thing. Sit on the chair, click the fire. Pretty sure, I think you have to be sitting down. Let me see. Yeah. As you can see, I'm standing. Turn it to the side so you can see. I'm clicking on it, nothing. But the minute you sit down, then it allows you to click on the fire to, for whatever reason, teleport you to Gorgrond. Sit on the chair and click. Just a fun little Easter egg.
Argus, the second content patch of the Legion expansion, released August 29th, 2017. Firstly, 7.3 added 3 new zones on the planet of Argus: Crocon, Antoran Wastes, and Macri, with each zone having its own story progression, world quests, rares, and secrets. Secondly, the patch added invasion points. Players could travel through both a major as well as minor portals to other worlds, fighting against Legion forces in short, repeatable, and pretty fun scenarios. Thirdly, we got the Antorus the Burning Throne raid. Fourthly, we got lore setup for both Lightforged Draenei and Void Elves. And finally, a fairly decent currency and catch-up system in Veiled Argonite and Primal Sargerite, making it easier for alt and returning players to gear up and jump into the latest content. The reason 7.3 makes this best patches list though is mostly thanks to the vast amount of lore payoff we received within it. For fans of the story, Legion was to WoW what Endgame was to MCU nerds, concluding many plot threads that have been running since the original RTS games, albeit with a few retcons along the way, like the changes made to the Draenei and the Eredor from the original Warcraft 3 instruction manual to the Burning Crusade expansion, which, funnily enough, Chris Metzen actually apologized for, stating he basically just forgot while also gently nudging people to just get over it. But back when Legion was current, Sargeras and the Burning Legion were considered the true big bad of the Warcraft universe canon and lore as far as we knew. The raid itself ended with us fighting a literal Titan world soul, Arcus the Unmaker. It didn't get much more dramatic than that, not to mention the fact that Antorus was also massive in terms of its scope. With world quests, invasion points, rares, and satisfying story chapters, Shadows of Argus kept players engaged for months, which is no small feat.
Argus the Unmaker. So, one, Argus being the planet that the Draenei came from originally. We had this great cinematic of Kil'jaeden talking to Sargeras. And, you know, Kil'jaeden's talking about how he thought things would be different at this point. And Sargeras says something along the lines of, well, maybe I doubted, maybe I was wrong about your resolve. And, we get this really great shot of Kil'jaeden. He's like, I paid for, this with my world. And it cuts to Argus, this broken planet. And we got to learn that Argus had a Titan soul in it, that, we got to fight him, and that they were using him essentially to kind of fuel the Burning Legion. So like every time they died, they used him to kind of bring them back. We got to see Sargeras finally in the flesh, fucking dry humping Azeroth. That cinematic at the end when we see that. After we beat Argus, we get the Titans, return home, children of Azeroth. You know, we get to see all the Titans. We get to see Illidan kind of decide to stay to be the jailer of Sargeras. Velen kind of accepting that, you know, what happened had nothing to do with fate or prophecy, but just the choices that we made. It's such a great scene. The last thing for Velen, you know, him taking that sigh of relief. You know, his people are no longer being hunted by the Burning Legion. For thousands upon thousands of years, his people, you know, traveled across the cosmos trying to escape the Burning Legion. And, you know, Sargeras is taken care of. You know, Kil'jaeden, Archimonde, they're taken care of. So as they're going back to Azeroth, you know, Velen just lets out this sigh of relief. He no longer has to be afraid of, you know, the Burning Legion coming after him and his people. And it's, oh, God, it's such a beautiful scene. It really is. Just that, like, that one moment of hearing that sigh of relief from him. It's like, oh my God. If you're a WoW nerd, like a lore nerd, that's enough to bring a tear to your eye because of what that sigh means. But, you know, Argus itself, you know, it makes sense that it's broken up to 3 different zones because it's a broken planet. But, you know, so is Outland. You know, but Outland felt complete, like an actual planet, as opposed to Argus. But I think the damage caused to Argus was a bit more major than, you know, some portals opening up and causing an instability and causing the planet to break up a little bit. But yeah, it was just huge for lore nerds. You know, finally getting to see Sargeras and his long flaming beard, seeing him just like fucking stab what sword into the freaking planet. It was so good. Antorus was really fun. Getting to fight not just Argus the Unmaker, but another Titan as well. You know, all the other Titans are kind of like spirits at this point. But we get to fight 2 Titans, which is, you know, it's amazing. We get to help ANR. So, but yeah, it's a great patch. It really was. Argus was kind of fun. Like the zones itself were kind of fun, but just the raid, the lore going.
And at number 4, we have patch 2.4, Fury of the Sunwell, a content patch released as part of the Burning Crusade expansion on March 25th, 2008, adding the 6-boss raid Sunwell Plateau, ending in a fight against the Deceiver Kil'jaeden, but also featuring a fight against Muru, who deserves a mention in this video for no reason other than that we just always mention him. We got the Magister's Terrace dungeon fighting Kel'Thas Sunstrider once again because Tempest Keep was merely a setback. Both instances situated on the Isle of Quel'Danas, a new daily quest hub in the Burning Crusade that we will soon be returning to at midnight. But originally, this new hub allowed players to unlock vendors and quests while gaining reputation and gold. And finally, 2.4 allowed Badges of Justice, otherwise known as heroic tokens, to now drop from all raid bosses, having previously only dropped from Karazhan and Zul'Aman in patch 2.3. There are a number of reasons 2.4 makes this list. Firstly, Sunwell Plateau was hands down one of the hardest instances that players had to face in its time, with some guilds reporting over 500 wipes to the pre-nerfed version of Muru. Beating this raid was a true badge of honor for any guild that managed to succeed prior to the release of the next expansion, Wrath of the Lich King. The daily content added with the patch was also outstanding though, being one of the most engaging daily hubs ever created, giving players a reason to log in every day and feel like they were part of a larger server effort rather than just doing chores in order to keep up. But speaking of keeping up, the gear catch-up system actually worked as well. Badges bridged the gap between casual and hardcore players, which, in turn, kept more of the player base active and raid ready. And last but not least, the Blood Elf, Burning Legion, and Sunwell lore mixed with Kil'jaeden's cinematic entrance at the end of the raid all contributed towards some truly unforgettable moments for fans of the Warcraft story. Next, number 3, we have the Secrets of Ulduar patch 3.1. This was the first major content patch released within the Wrath of the Lich King expansion on April 14th, 2009. adding the 14 boss raids set within the massive Titan facility of Ulduar, featuring a variety of encounters against corrupted Titan Watchers as well as the old god Yogg-Saron. But that's not all. 3.1 also introduced dual talent specialization, letting players swap between two talent builds, e.g. tanked healer or PvE/PvP, without visiting a trainer, whilst also introducing an early version of the Argent Tournament Grounds, which would go on to be expanded further in future patches. As per usual, significant class balance changes. New glyphs and UI improvements were included as well. Ulduar is yet another raid which is widely considered to be one of the best, with bosses like Mimiron and his infamous Firefighter hard mode, Freya and Yogg-Saron being particularly praised for their creativity. Hard mode and precursors to mythic difficulty had existed in the past in raids such as Ahn'Qiraj and Zul'Aman, but Ulduar took the concept and implemented it into 10 of the 14 encounters within the raid. Instead of simply toggling a difficulty setting, hard mode was activated by player actions, granted sometimes just by pushing a big red button. But overall, it was a much more organic and immersive system. The reason Algalon the Observer is an entirely optional boss in Ulduar is because he was originally hard mode only, despawning after a time limit of an hour from entering the instance, and only accessible after defeating several other bosses on hard mode first. But if you did manage to complete the necessary steps, you were rewarded with yet another iconic, visually stunning, and cinematic fight, literally saving the entire planet in the process. And all of that aside, the dual spec feature fundamentally changed the game right up until Legion finally allowed players to just switch between all specs. But from Wrath until Legion, dual spec made it much easier for players to fill multiple roles, adapt to different content, and was considered to be one of the greatest quality of life improvements to the game for a long time. And at number 2,
I knew Ulduar would be here. It always is. Yeah, Ulduar, one of the best raids of all time. The fight with Yogg-Saron, when you first enter, you hear Sarah screaming like a fucking jump scare. And then just the transition between her voice and Yogg-Saron, that the whole, I am the lucid dream, the monster, the monster in your nightmares, the fiend of 1,000 faces. It's so fucking good. And then his dying words, it lets you kind of hear the old god part where he just kind of starts talking. What we hear is gibberish. We get to see Freya and Mimiron, who are Titan Keeper. Well, we got to see all the Titan Keepers for the most part. And we got one of the best lines. One of the best lines.
I remember you. In the mountains.
One of the best lines. It's just the way he says it. Thorum is one of the cool ones. And, but we get to, with him, Mimiron with the big red button. And we get his machine that eventually forms, and it's called Voltron. The way it's spelt out. It's just a fun raid. Algalon, oh my god, that whole entire speech as he's talking, while you're fighting him, he's talking, and then when you beat him, he's continuing, and it's such a great, great lines, great speech. If you haven't heard it, I recommend listening to it. It is so fucking good. And of course, Kyle A. Bear, last time on Dragon Ball Z, that guy, he's the one who voices Algalon the Observer. So there's a lot of passion and a lot of just raw emotion in those lines. But the cinematic or the trailer you saw that he was playing, that woman that's Jaina. People forgot that's what Jaina looked like. We're so used to seeing her with her Elsa hair going on. But that was Jaina. We also saw Ronan, which he was a good man. But it really is just one of the most memorable patches simply because of how amazing Ulduar was and still is. It still is amazing. And I'm sure you guys have plenty experiences and stories you can tell with Ulduar, so let me hear them. Let's get some old war stories going on.
2, we have patch 5.2, the Thunder King. Another Mista Pandaria patch released on March 5th, 2013, adding yet another colossal raid, the 12 boss Throne of Thunder, featuring one of the best end bosses in WoW history, Lei Shen, the Thunder King. We also got the Isle of Thunder Zone with daily quests, rare spawns, world bosses, and even PvP objectives. Not only is Throne of Thunder considered,
not to mention the King's Vault, which you go in and basically try to collect as much money as possible before the time was up. And it was really, really fun. You would find these keys, and you would go in, and they allowed you to access like chests and stuff. And it was just fun. You know, it's just do as much as you can before the time runs out. But then they kind of got rid of it. You know, fun detected, fun removed. But Lei Shen, the trailer for it with Chen narrating, you know, gather heroes, sound the drums, the Thunder King comes. You know, we hear that the Zandalari are the ones who resurrected him. It was such a good trailer. The island was fun itself. Such great bosses.
yet another example of peak WoW rating, Lei Shen in particularly is remembered as a near perfect final boss, being challenging, cinematic, and mechanically rich all at once. The Isle of Thunder is still considered to be an absolute masterclass in zone design. Long-term players have very fond memories of moments such as swarming Nalak the Stormlord and Indasta the Devilsaur world boss, while assisting either Jaina Proudmoore or Lorthamar Theron in spearheading their faction assault on the Isle. This patch gave players a reason to log in every day, whilst both mid-tier and hardcore guilds got something out of the raid as well. For many, Blizzard were firing on all cylinders when patch 5.2 released. But of course, being number 2 on this list, there is one other patch which should really be considered peak World of Warcraft. And that brings us to the number 1 on this list, where we have to give it to patch 3.3, Fall of the Lich King, released at the end of the Wrath of the Lich King expansion on December 8th, 2009. Just goes to show how fantastic Wrath of the Lich King really was, with the patch including the much celebrated 12-boss Icecrown Citadel raid, which ended the final battle against Arthas Menethil, aka the Lich King. The introduction of the Dungeon Finder tool, which revolutionized group content. 3 new dungeons, Forge of Souls, Pit of Sauron, and Halls of Reflection, each telling a story which led directly into the raid and included very memorable moments, like hopelessly cheesing it from a very angry Arthas, as well as cross-realm grouping and improved raid lockouts. Firstly, this was a huge narrative climax. Arthas was the hero turned villain in Warcraft 3 and the antagonist of the Wrath of the Lich King expansion. Defeating him was one of the most anticipated things in the entire franchise's history. And although we technically didn't do the deed, the cinematic ending with the ghost of King Tyrannus declaring there must always be a Lich King still remains one of the best that Blizzard has ever created. The music, the atmosphere, the pacing, variety, and quality of the raid itself, all contributing towards ICC being a major contender for the best WoW raid to a large chunk of long-term players. And that's before we've even considered the introduction of the Dungeon Finder tool, which, love it or hate it, changed WoW forever. You could argue that the only reason World of Warcraft has lasted 20 plus years is due to the continual efforts to improve accessibility. The Dungeon Finder opened up dungeons to everyone, not just those in a guild. And still to this day, it has kept queue times somewhat bearable, unless you queue really late at night like a really cool nocturnal person, and then good luck, you'll be waiting for hours. But overall, 3.3 wrapped up one of WoW's greatest expansions in a spectacular fashion, delivering goated gameplay and story, and will likely always be considered the gold standard in how to end an expansion. And
yeah. So this is a peak patch during a peak expansion, providing peak gameplay and story, and shows it by having the peak subscriber. Yeah, during Wrath of the Lich King, like during this phase, there was like what 11.3 million players, like active players. It was insane. The Lich King fight was incredible. Like you get killed, and a lot of people were stupid and they released, but it was part of the encounter, because after you get killed, Tyrion resurrects everyone, And then there's this climactic finish with you guys and the player and the Arthas. And I mean his story is one of him being this prince who strived to live in the light and protect his people no matter the cost, to him basically making a deal with the devil and becoming the very thing he was fighting against. He went from fighting the scourge to becoming it. Not just becoming it, becoming the leader of it. First it's, oh, well, I need to go find this sword because that'll help me, and it's like, are you sure you want to do this? And he's like, I'll do anything to protect the people. Okay, first deal made. And then he's, putting on the helm of domination, and this once proud, revered, loved prince of Lordaeron suddenly became the biggest threat to the planet. And during the game, during the expansion, they'd let you know that he was there. Between dungeons, zones, he would pop up all over the place, reminding you, hey, this guy is a threat. And then finally being able to take him down, this huge lore character that we've known and loved since Warcraft 3, being able to finally take him down, end his reign of terror. But then that with his father saying there must always be a Lich King. It's like, oh god, so do we have to do this all over again? But then we have badass Bolvar over here. It's like, nope, give it to me. Give it to me. I'm at the end of my life. Just put it on me. It wrapped up a lot of story for a lot of characters. Kind of, if I remember, after this, you would give like a pendant, if it was, was it a pendant to Jaina, and then you kind of have an encounter with her where it's like, oh, he's kept this, so I always believed that there was some good still left in Arthas, and just the fact that he still had this pendant or locket with him showed that there might have been something deep down, that his love for Jaina was still there, that maybe that was a little bit of humanity that still clung to the living world. And that moment with her, Jaina, it's just, it was so good. But Wrath of the Lich King, my favorite expansion. And I wish they would just make classic, Wrath Classic just as a permanent thing, because this whole going through, like, we're gonna be in Pandaria Classic, and then, oh boy, Warlords of Draenor Classic. It's not Classic anymore. Classic is the first three: Vanilla, Burning Crusade, and Wrath of the Lich King. But I guess that's why people stick with private servers, because apparently Blizzard just doesn't get it. But yeah, ICC, good news, everyone. You had references, and Sindragosa, one of the coolest bosses. We saw Sindragosa in the cinematic, just, and then rising up behind him, and it was then getting to fight her. It was just peak. But yeah. And then you had Invincible. How can we see him if he's invincible? People still say that. It's funny though. It's kind of like Thunder Fury. I still see that meme all the time in chat. Did someone say Thunder Fury, Blessed Blade of the Windseeker? But I love Wrath of the Lich King. I love the final patch. Let them come. Frostmourne hungers. Again, peak. But yeah, these were the best patches. And I agree. There's so many patches, but very few of them stick out the way these did. But let me know your ideas about it. If you agree, or let me know some of your favorite patches. Let's hear some horror stories of Old War or ICC, or war stories of these places. But that's gonna do for me. You guys know the drill. I'll see you guys later. Bye, guys.